Yemi Bakayoko, oh yo, Samina Mina, Edward Mende, Samina Mina Sam Sadakte. He comes from Senegal.
And I think going out and get Saul was the top transfer of the market for Chelsea.
Chesney could have been in the shower smoking a cigarette like he was at Arsenal, and we still would not have scored.
My rants have been fueled by Scott. Don't get it twisted.
Big Rom. Man, fuck you.
In Roman we trust, right?
You and me are going to have a battle royale about Jorginho and diving.
The flag stays down!
All right, welcome to the Flag Stays Down podcast. Still running at partial capacity here. We're interchanging, but Parker's back. International Man of Mystery back with us. Parker, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, man, it's it's good to be in my own home for a few days straight. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. More time in airports than I ever thought I would spend, and so I looked at my Delta app, and I've taken 21 individual segments thus far this year. So in 3 months, that's hefty, and the month of March was just kind of brutal for that. So a lot of travel, some of it fun, some of it not. And, when you go to a place like Bermuda and the weather's not great, you kind of like, well, this kind of sucks. Like you sort of expect it to be tropical and the water's still crystal clear and blue, but it's like 40-mile-an-hour winds and sort of overcast and rainy. And you're like, this sucks, man. I'd rather be in Minnesota. And I don't say that often, but weather's warming up here. It's starting to feel a little bit like spring, starting to feel like we're kind of hitting that stride. But I know Minnesota likes to hit you with some snow still in April and May, so I know it's coming. But yeah, man, it's starting to feel like we're turning the corner from a weather perspective, and my travel schedule slows down. So I'm happy to kind of get back into my routines and figure out how to operate not as an international man of mystery. But how about you, man? I know you guys. You and Aiden held it down last week. I appreciated listening to that episode. It was fun to see my boy, the Mr. I didn't tell him nothing. I didn't see nothing. So it was good to hear you interact with your son. I bet that was fun for you.
Yeah, dude, he was so excited. He went to school the next day and told all his friends. And I didn't know whether that was a good or bad thing. I don't need any calls from other parents about me cussing on the me only segment. But it was fun. It was something that he'd been really looking forward to, and I'd been looking forward to. So, yeah, good time. But man, this weekend and this upcoming week is all. Think about it. It's stuff that this is going to be another year where I can't cross these things off my bucket list. I've been spending a lot of my weekend watching live sets from Ultra Music Festival down in Miami. Actually, the one I'm looking forward to, Dead Mouse and Cascade, is coming on in about 30 minutes here. So I got that one set to record.
Sweet.
And then baseball opening day is this week. And you already took your drink for the baseball reference, so I appreciate that. But I've never been to opening day. Been a baseball fan all my life, never been. I thought maybe I would sneak out of work this week, but last week kicked my ass and I can't get out. So maybe next year.
Question for you though. Would it be a consolation to do a Brewers opening day? I know your dream scenario would be to see the Sox, but would you take a Brewers opening day?
The nice thing about Brewers opening day is that you go and you're guaranteed a game. The White Sox problem is always snow or rain on opening day, and it's always pushed back the next day. And this year they're calling for it. They're calling for thunderstorms on Thursday. So yeah, I think just to go and actually be in a game would be nice. And I don't know how they do it up in Minnesota. I mean, you guys are probably gonna get like 10 inches of snow this week, but
yeah, it's always dicey. They don't have the retractable roof either. Minnesota typically doesn't host opening day. They have their home opener to follow, but places like Milwaukee almost always host, true opening day, right? And it's a ritual and it's fun, and I've been with my dad just once, and it's quite the experience. So I didn't know if it would taint it for you if you want to do like the true, like I'm going to do it with my squad, or if you take the Brewers if you could get it.
Yeah, no, the easier the better for me. So being able to attend a game, not driving through Chicago traffic, that'd be all right with me. But Parker, just a quick question before we get into it. So I've listed off 2 of my bucket list items. What's something on yours?
Bucket list. So I spoke this into existence with my wife, just trying to, manifest the future, right? Trying to make things happen. And bucket list for me is going to Japan. It's a place that I've always wanted to go to. I don't speak a lick of Japanese, so I know it's hard, but things like Google Translate make that a whole lot easier. You can set it to like conversation mode and order food at a restaurant and just kind of have it translate for both people. So it's easier than ever. It's a safe city. It's a big city. They've got really great public transportation. It kind of checks off a lot of the list for me. And they've got a great history of arcades. I've been an arcade nerd my entire life. And just the history, the scenes, you can get to mountains, you can get to big city, like a lot of the cool things that you can see. So I said that I'm going to try my hardest to get to Japan in 2024 and try to check that off my bucket list. The problem is anytime you go over that far, you got to go for 2 weeks or it's not really worth your time, or at least a minimum of like 10 days with like a couple of days of like travel and recovery around it, because it takes 16 hours to get there. You're jet lagged. It's not fun. And so it takes a bit to acclimate in, and then it takes time to acclimate on the back end as well. So it's hard to work that into a busy work schedule. That's the problem. That's number one on my bucket list, man. I would love to go to that. And then I'll just say World Cup match. Never been to a World Cup. It's coming here next go around. Just to get to a match would be a really fun experience. And I know soccer in the US is, I don't want to say exploded, but has grown in popularity, to which you can find really great supporter bars for the US matches. And even just going and then being part of the pre and post festivities would be a lot of fun.
Well, I've got all 3 of us, you, me, and Matt, on the I don't even know if it's a wait list or what it is, the FIFA wait list for Kansas City. So, and we've got a place to stay, so we'll make sure to check that one off in 2026.
Let's get it.
All right. Well, Parks, we're on episode number 33 tonight. So getting into the weeds here, this is probably the last number we have where it's like relevant players. So here's who we have to choose from. You got the current holder, Wes Fofana, the legend, Alex, the academy player. I feel like this is the second time he's been nominated for this, but Thomas Kalish. And then the wild card, we'll say, let's see, Emerson.
Which Palmieri?
Yeah.
Oh, that throws a wrench. No, I don't think you can pick against Alex. Although I've really liked what I've seen out of Wes. I think he's going to be a great player. But yeah, I think, how long did Alex hold it for? Did the show?
It was 4 years.
So he was part of the team when I just kind of started being a Chelsea fan, and so I don't know a ton about him or remember a ton about him. Back in those days, I didn't follow the club as closely as I do today, so admittedly I'm not as in depth of knowledge, but I obviously remember the name in a big way. And yeah, I'll go with Alex.
Yeah, it's a solid choice. He wore 33 for only a couple of years, but played for Chelsea for a total of 8 years. Man, I'm looking at his stats right now, and they are not what I envisioned in my head. He only made 86 league appearances in 8 years for Chelsea. But I just remember him playing big game fixtures. He was I know we laugh about Carlos Tevez and FIFA was at 07, the bulldog in attack. Alex was the bulldog in defense. But man, that might sway my opinion here, because Wes hasn't played here very long, but I think over the course of his career, I think he will surpass Alex.
I think he has every bit of talent too. And I think he's a big number signing, but what you see his impact when he comes on the pitch, and he came back from injury quickly and made a pretty forceful impact. And so I just can't give it to a guy yet who hasn't proven it to me over the time. So there you go.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll do a split decision there. We'll go Alex, and then we'll go potential Wes. We'll have to check back in about 10 years, right?
Yeah. Cheers on that.
All right. Well, no Chelsea to cover this week with the international break. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of topics here. We'll talk about Chelsea players, both internationally and at home, with a couple different contract negotiations going on. We'll talk about some recent coaching carousel news. Stamford Bridge apparently going to be torn down, new stadium to be developed. So where are we going to play? And then finally, we'll talk about a busy April fixture list. So Parker, sticking with the players here.
Yeah.
There was a couple of news items that came out. We just talked about Wes Fofana. He had to withdraw with injury. Had a couple of great performances by certain players for their national teams. A couple other players withdrawing from consideration. And we've also got some contract negotiations going on. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, it's always interesting to see international break, because people go play with systems that they may or may not be more familiar with. But some people like to ball out. Some people like to kind of disappear a little bit. It's a hodgepodge, like you said about our podcast. It's just like they're all completely different situations, but it is still kind of fun to follow it. So I'll just kind of start with some of the players that caught my eye with certain things, and if you have anything to add, go from there. So like Christian Pulisic, I don't know if you watched the Granada match at all.
No, I was driving back from Missouri, but I got your guys' updates from it.
Yeah, Christian was everywhere, man. I know it's Granada, I understand it, and Pulisic captained that match for the U.S. I don't remember if he's often been the captain or not, but I feel like he hasn't. And he was captain, and he was a part of everything. He had the first 2 assists. He played well. He put dangerous balls into the box. I don't know if he got credited for the 3rd assist or not, but he played a free kick into the box, and McKinney kind of hit it up, got saved, and then he kind of like side bicycle kicked it. So big win for the U.S. I know, again, Granada, not the most impressive of wins. It's not Mexico in Estadio Azteca or anything like that, but it's still great to see the team kind of succeeding and gelling together, despite the manager that we still have in charge.
Yeah, and you can only beat who you have in front of you. And in the Nations League, it's kind of a crapshoot. So El Salvador and Granada is who the U.S. have, and so it's who you got to beat. And I think they've put themselves in a pretty good position, especially if it were to eventually come down to any kind of tie. Holy cow, 7-1 is going to help you with goal differential. A couple players I've been impressed with this break have been English players, and not for the senior team. Harvey Vale scored against the U.S. For the English U20s, and it feels like every time he goes off with the 3 Lions, he goes and scores. So hopefully nothing but good things for him coming out of the international break. And then Noni Madueke had another fantastic outing for, was it the U21s?
I think so. And he was only on, I think he got subbed on in like the 60th or something too.
Yeah.
He still put out a performance.
It was instant impact from him. And it leaves me kind of scratching my head of, I know that there are good players ahead of him on the depth chart, but he hasn't featured at all in the last 4 matches. It's just kind of a head scratcher there. So hopefully, again, this is something that can kind of kickstart the next maybe month or so for him.
I totally agree. I think he needed that bit of confidence back, like hasn't been featured. So confidence can kind of go away a little bit when your manager doesn't give you that trust a little bit. So hopefully Potter sees what's going on and can you look at it, the talent that he has, and we saw it when he played too for Chelsea, when he featured. I mean, he likes to take guys on. He likes to go one-on-one. He likes to get balls into the box. He likes to create. And so I loved what I saw out of him. And then Harvey Vale's a name that has fallen off of the radars a bit, especially since the big signings and the multiple signings that we made. We don't really hear much about Harvey Vale anymore. So I'm happy you brought him up, because he feels like a guy that I don't want to say, I think we're at risk of losing him. How about that? I think if we don't do something soon with him and show him that like we buy into him, I think he's got to leave, because if you're him and you know what your skill level is, you know what you bring to the table, you could feature at a lower level team. If you think he probably could start most games for a Crystal Palace or Everton or a Villa or teams like that, like where you can be instant impacts. I'm thinking of guys like Conor Gallagher, right? Like that went elsewhere and we're the main guys. They might not be the best player on the team, but they're 2, 3, 4. Harvey Vale at his age has that ability. And again, it's someone that when he featured for Chelsea in matches, we saw it. It wasn't like hype, and then gets to the big moment and shits the bed. It was hype, and then impressed, like did really good things. And, like we're all like, shit, we want to see him more, like get him back out there. And then he would go away for 3 months and we're like, need that consistency, right? So I'm afraid of losing him. The last player I'll shout out real quick is Badiashile. I love to see him playing for France and doing big things, because he's another one where I've been so happy with his performances on the pitch. I'm so sad that he's not in our Champions League squad, and think he could help us out a lot. And I just think he was probably the lowest of names on the people that we signed this year, and has the potential to be one of the best impacts.
Just a real quick touch back on Harvey Vale here. I think that it's almost good that he's had almost a down year. He had the loan to Hull City, I believe it was, for the first half of the year, where he only featured twice for them. And we canceled that contract, that loan contract, in January. But since coming back, 10 appearances for the PL2 squad, 3 goals, 3 assists. And he's now captained England's U20s. I believe it's 7 times. So hopefully, this is like the Billy Gilmore approach, where you go and you struggle. Now, granted, Billy hasn't quite recovered since then, but you hope that you kind of build something up in him there. I also want to give a quick shout out to Andre Santos, making his Brazilian first team debut in a shocking loss to Morocco. He had his ups and downs. I watched a little bit of that match. He looked a little out of sorts at times, but also once he grew into the game, looked a lot more confident. So I think that's definitely our midfield of the future. Andre Santos and Enzo Fernandez. And it's exciting. It's something to look forward to. And, you can always look forward to and enjoy having hope. So looking forward to that.
Thing about Santos is he balled out in that tournament. He scored 5 straight games or something like that at a lower level. And I'm guessing he got a bit of the, all right, this is the big boy time, right? So the pace of the game comes to a shock at most players, right? Where it's a lot different. You're playing with men now, you're not playing with boys. So it's good to see the progression in the game. That's how you tell if someone's really got it, because first crack at it, it's a bit of a shock to you, and then you start to figure it out and kind of learn how to operate in those systems. So there's only upside there, right? He's only going to get better the more times he features in there, and after that stellar performance, it's going to keep going up.
Now, just a couple negatives. We didn't mention João Felix scored for Portugal. You had mentioned Badiashile making his French debut, but we also had Kai Havertz come home with an illness. Had Wes Fofana drop out of the French squad. England looked good today, but let's see, Reece James didn't start. So there are a couple things to worry about there. But at the end of the day, if players are coming home to train, that I have no problem with that. If Wes Fofana is coming home to heal up, perfect. If Kai Havertz is coming home to get over his illness, perfect. If we can not have Reece James play while he's out on international duty, it's selfish as a Chelsea fan, but I'm all for it. Reduce the risk of injury.
Especially with him, man, because the risk of injury is always out there. And if he's going to go down, I want him to see him go down in a Chelsea uniform and not someone else's. It's just he needs to stay healthy.
But we did have some news from some players at home here. N'Golo Kante is playing with the U21s. Played in a closed door fixture against, I forgot who it was, Reading or QPR or someone.
Charlton,
thank you. But his contract negotiations are apparently moving forward, which is good. Mason Mount, more information on him has come out and his contract negotiations, and it seems like that has stalled out even further. So, Parker, where do you want to start, the good or the bad?
Let's start with Conte, because how old is Conte? Is he 32?
That's a good question.
And that's kind of where I want to start, just because if Conte is 32, a 2 + 1, 31.
Yep.
So that's like the very cusp of a 2 + 1 kind of a deal. And this feels like Willian to me. And the 3-year deal he got with Arsenal versus the 1 or 2 that Chelsea were willing to offer him. I think Willian may have been a little bit older, but with his injuries, yeah, it's a bit dicey. And you talk about the midfield of the future. Conte most certainly was the midfield of the past and one of the most prolific midfielders we've had in the last 10 years. Hasn't featured since August, which was our second game of the year against Tottenham. I struggle because, man, I love Conte. I have a Conte kit. I've loved him since he came. He's energetic. He pops up everywhere. Covers most of the pitch, most games, right? And he's great. But I just don't know how to evaluate this until I see him play again and see how he fits into our team, because we've changed a lot since the last time he played. Squad management, everything has changed a lot since he played. And I don't know where he fits. I don't know in what capacity he fits. I mean, is he a replacement for Joao Felix, or sort of a comp for Joao Felix in the roles that he's been featured in? Probably. I don't think he's going to sit back with Enzo. So I think that's like kind of the only place, like kind of the floater 10 role, just sort of be everywhere, be a menace around the pitch and pop up in areas. That's kind of the place I see him. But if we're thinking of Joao as a long-term replacement or long-term feature, then I don't know if we sign Conte on this deal for 2 years to back him up. I'm torn, man. You can see it on my face. I'm torn with this one, but like business sense wise, I don't know if it makes sense. I'm happy to hear where you stand on it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm torn on it, though I am a little bit more optimistic, I think, than you are. I think having in a very young squad, I think having a couple veterans and a couple like good habit veterans is solid. And if Andre Santos is going to get his work permit, which now he should be able to, getting his first international cap, he'll be joining the squad next year. Conor Gallagher needs some kind of role model in that squad. Kovacic, it's still unknown if Chelsea are going to sell him or let him go. And so there's a lot of moving parts to this. And I feel like the more security, the better. Like you can always go and sell N'Golo Kante, but you probably won't get much for him. Maybe $15-20 million, something like that. But it's still going to be better than letting him go on a free. But at the same time, I'm real interested to see, because I don't think the formation is going to change now. I think we're going to stick with that 3-4-3-ish formation. And I think Enzo's set. Enzo's not moving. So it's going to be who's his partner, who's his best partner. Kovacic has looked really good in the last couple matches, but he also looked kind of shaky coming out of the World Cup. So, what Kovacic are you going to get for the rest of the season? That being said, slotting Kante in there and playing that Kovacic role is that may be a game changer. Kova's good and he can press, but we know Kante's press when he is at 100% is elite. And so all of a sudden you're starting to force a lot of those turnovers in the opposition half. Flip that ball to Enzo and there's a ball over the top to João Felix right away. It's something special, but like you said, it's an age thing and it's a can you stay healthy thing. So we've got a lot of talent in midfield, and maybe the plan isn't to use him as the premier starter. Maybe it's a game a week kind of thing for him.
Good point. I guess my point more or less is I think we're decent in press right now. I think our problem is defense, and I think Kova's a more resolute defender than Kante is, and so that's my only fear is we have a lot of guys who can do that role and press high, and I like our high press right now. So just need to be concerned of like winning that ball back in the middle of the pitch, and I know Conte can do that at a high level too. I just I hope we he comes out and we get that Conte of a few years ago and we go, oh yeah, like that. I want to be proven to like, oh yeah, this is him, right? This is that guy. Still got it. And similar to like a Thiago Silva where he does things on the pitch at his age where you're like, dude, still got it, right? Still hums at that level and still can play at that super high level.
Yeah, N'Golo Kante, 262 appearances in his time at Chelsea. It's to the point where just not even looking at it objectively. I would like to see him finish his career here. We don't get that privilege very much at Chelsea. We didn't get to see Frank end his career here. John Terry we got to see. Aiden Hazard we're not gonna see, and yeah, that's it. It's sad. So N'Golo Kante I think would be a nice one to just kind of let him fade to black.
Don't hate that plan. As long as the financials make sense, I don't hate that plan.
Yes. Hopefully a very incentive-laden contract. So speaking of incentive-laden contracts, Mason Mount has turned down another offer from Chelsea. The reporting was that he wants to be paid very similar to Reece James. Chelsea offered something just below what Reece James is making, which I believe is 2.25 per week. But they offered him a 7 to 8 year deal. I believe it was a 7+1, something like that. Just a standard long length Chelsea contract. Mason Mount wants full image rights. He wants a shorter contract and he wants to be paid like Reece James. So contract talks have once again stalled out.
So yeah, I'll jump in. The one question I have is, from what I read, I don't want to call it a loophole. It's not a loophole. It's the rules. The rules of allocating financial fair play contracts over the term of a 7-year contract will no longer be the fact. You can only do it across a 5-year contract. Is that correct?
Yes, but I believe that applies to transfer fees. Like the contract, any existing contracts you can still do out, but the fee can only be up to 5 years.
You're right. Yep. That's for outgoing or non-Chelsea players. Gotcha. So I was curious in my mind what the incentive would be for Chelsea to sign him on a 7-year deal, except for to have him for 7 years. Is there a different play? Is there a different financial incentive to do so? And if you could allocate the deal across a longer term, I get it. But if that doesn't play, then it doesn't really matter. The problem with comparing it to a Reece James or anyone who signed deals pre sort of new way of doing things is, like, you look at Mudryk, you look at Madueke, you look at West Fofana and the deals that they're on, they're very different to what Reece James signed. And I think that's the closer comp is you got these new guys who buy into a system who are taking less money than they might be able to get into the open market for sort of guaranteed length of contract deal at a certain place. So look, I've got a lot of time for Mason Mount. I think I have more time for Mason Mount than the average Chelsea fan, or at least the average Chelsea fan that I read on Twitter does. I think a lot of people are okay with him going. I'm not there. I would love to see him play for Chelsea, but I also want people to buy into what we're doing here. If you're not willing to buy into what we're doing here and you think you can go get money elsewhere, go get money elsewhere. And if everyone in life needs to go secure the bag that they want to go secure for whatever profession you work in or do, there's trade-offs to that. But if you want to go make money, go to China, go to Saudi Arabia, go somewhere that'll pay you buku bucks, because they will. I mean, Saudi would go ape shit for Mason Mount. They would love to have it Mason Mount. They pay him $500K a week. Easy. Like, there would be a no contest. They would do that in a heartbeat, right? They've got fuck you money, as you like to say, right? It's just, if that's what you want to go do it. And I won't fault you for it. I'll never fault someone for moving for money like that, because you got to take care of you and yours. It's fine. But if you want to play for Chelsea, you got to buy into what we're doing here. And this is how we're doing things now. And I get that it's not how we used to do things, but it's a little bit different, and be on the same playing field as the people who have signed in now, and be a part of something great. Because I think once a full cycle kind of goes with structuring contracts and deals like this, you got a chance to see something really cool. Does he want to be a part of that or not? It's up to him.
Yeah, I just wonder about his mentality. For the last two managers, he has been like the guy, right? He was Frank's son, he was Tuchel's son. Potter certainly gave him a chance, but seems to have fallen out. So I think this is like the first real set of adversity that Mace has been through. I mean, before Chelsea, he was at Derby with Frank, played a whole lot there. Then he was at Vitesse, where we've got that special relationship, so he was going to play a lot there. So this may be the first time that he's been challenged at Chelsea, that at least that I know of. And so it might be an issue of, is this too hard? Is it too hard for him? Maybe he wants to go somewhere, because again, I've said it on pods in the past, these players are not in a vacuum. Like they see, they hear, and the fan base is very vocal about Mason Mount. Some of it gets excessive. I'd say actually a lot of it gets excessive. I mean, he's been player of the year the last 2 years for us. He still catches flack. He's having a down year. I don't really know what to make. I could take him or leave him at this point. But I have a feeling that if he goes, A, we're going to get screwed on a transfer fee. And B, he's going to succeed wherever he goes. Can you imagine Mason Mount at Liverpool or at City or at Arsenal with Declan Rice?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. And then this ownership group is going to catch flack. And there's not going to be a winner in this if he goes.
Yeah, it's hard to look back on and play the revisionist history, because it is going to be a no-win situation for us. And if we unless we keep him and he does great, we keep him through the hard time, and he does kind of rise to the occasion. I've seen enough good out of Mason Mount. I've seen enough great out of Mason Mount for me to be willing to take I don't even want to call it a flyer, just a bet on him, just to perform in the next 3-5 years. I would prefer a 5-year deal if I'm honest. I don't know if I want him on an 8-year deal. Like, just again, I don't know if it really makes sense to lock him up that long. And then, but I think you're right on mentality, and I think the thing that Mace gets a lot of flack for as well is like his social media presence. He shows up in Miami on off weeks, and I don't know if he parties and drinks a lot or whatever, but he shows up in club scenes and things like that. And I think people wonder, if he's just about money or his own image or his own likeness, and obviously adding image and likeness to your contract doesn't help your argument if you're Mason Mount, right? If he just cares about his image, then I think the hard work is the stuff that he doesn't isn't top of mind for him then. And if that's the case, then I think he's going to get found out. Like, it's going to come to roost a little bit, and he's not going to be as good as everyone remembers him to be, because he stayed stagnant and everyone else kind of kept going up a level. And to compare him to someone else on the team, when I see gym photos of Mikhail Mudryk, I get amped up, man. I see him, deadlifting and squatting in the gym, and I'm just like, dude's putting in work, and I like to see it. And I don't see those same things out of Mace. If you're worried about your image and you're worried about your TikTok and your girlfriend and all the other stuff that goes around with having fame, it's not the recipe for long-term success. It's just not.
This comment I'm going to make isn't so much specifically about Mason Mount, but I heard an interesting. It was almost a throwaway line. As I was listening to Sirius XM this week. I can't remember if it was Winalda or Tony Meola or somebody, but they were talking about Chelsea and their struggles, and they made the point of, Chelsea won the Champions League, now 2 years ago now, when a lot of these guys were so young. Is that a detriment to Chelsea? Have these guys now stagnated because, we've won it all? Like, what do we need to do? We don't need to do anything to get better. We're already champions of Europe, champions of the world. So the guys like Kai Havertz's, Mason Mounts, et cetera, who have struggled, might be on that. And I think there was a little bit of that with Kai for a little bit. And he's talked about how he doesn't want to be somebody who lives off that goal for the rest of his life. But that didn't come out until about 3 months ago. And his kind of resurgence over the last couple of weeks, it leads me to believe that maybe he's starting to put in work. But Mace, I could see that with. I could absolutely see him being somebody like, what do you want me to, the Kanye West, Kobe Bryant, like, how many more records can my records break? What more do you want from me, Kobe Bryant?
More records.
Yes. So I don't know. It's such a tricky spot with Mason Mount.
I wish the kid the best, and I hope he stays. I hope it works out, but I don't want to see him go. It's just still a hard one for me. My heart tells me I don't want to see him go. My logical brain says I'm fine with it.
I like that. I'll side with you there. All right. Well, let's turn to some coaches here. We've had quite the carousel in the last couple of days. Other teams not firing managers midweek. They're doing it over international breaks, which seems to be the smart play. Though Bayern, I don't know if it's a smart play. It's an interesting play. Firing Julian Nagelsmann on Wednesday. Hiring Thomas Tuchel on, what was that, Thursday or Friday?
Wednesday.
So bringing in Tuchel, and then Spurs just a couple hours ago here on Sunday, firing Antonio Conte. Man, I guess my whole takeaway from this is Spurs have ruined 2 winning managers, and it's the most Spursy thing to ever happen. But also, Julian Nagelsmann should turn some eyes at Chelsea. I think he is the right fit, and I know we're all in the feel good Graham Potter stage now, 3 wins in 4, but Nagelsmann seems like a lot better fit.
So this is the analogy, right? You've been with your girlfriend. You went through a rough spurt, right? And you were kind of arguing back and forth. You had a good week, but the girl that you've had your eye on just broke up with her boyfriend. You're like, ooh, that's the one I want, right? Like in your heart, you know it, but like, you were making progress. And you're like, ooh, but it's the meme, right? Where the guy's turning around and it's just, Nagelsmann checks a ton of boxes. And for a long time, my biggest argument to you was, okay, who do we hire? Right? Who else is out there that can, tick the boxes? And this is the first one in a big way that ticks the boxes. Have you seen his stats at Bayern?
I saw the ones from this year, which are
They are
ridiculous.
stupid. How did this dude get fired? How could you ever justify getting fired?
Bayern has the same problem that Chelsea had for the longest time. The players control that locker room. He made enemies with Manuel Neuer. Let's see, Leroy Sané, I think, was on his shit list. Serge Gnabry was on his shit list. So you're pissing off your stars. And just like Chelsea with Lampard and Terry and all that, like, they control a locker room. They don't like you, they're gonna find somebody else. So it's, ooh, boy. But yeah, those stats are good.
I guess, but you're bringing in a dude who I think arguably runs a tighter ship. I mean, Tuchel is my way or the highway, kind of a guide. He is not rosy around. He gives you shit, and everyone has seen the clips of him getting fired up and yelling at players mid-match and stuff. He is a shouter. He is a yeller. It doesn't work well for we saw it at Chelsea. It doesn't work well in a players control the locker room situation. I don't know how this is going to go, but I think it's going to go terribly bad. We could put a bet down on how long we think he's going to last, but give it 18 months, right?
And he only signed a 2.5-year contract.
I know.
But just to touch on it, Nagelsmann this year, at least in the Bundesliga, 15-7-3. His 3 losses are the only 3 losses for Bayern on the year. What have they scored?
He hasn't lost in the Champions League yet.
Yeah. I know, 133 goals in like 32 matches for Bayern this year, which
they're plus 45 in goals.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the Bundesliga. You take it with a grain of salt, but still impressive. And you talk about the boxes that he checks at Chelsea. Christopher Vivell, basically the acting sporting director, and that whole think tank is very Red Bull focused. Nagelsmann's 35, so he checks the box of being a young coach. He's managed at Leipzig and Bayern Munich, 2 of the biggest clubs in Germany. So he checks that box. He's managed under pressure, and his teams have dominated offensively, which is something that this Chelsea squad need. It'll be interesting if we come out of the international break and struggle. I think there's going to be a lot of calls for a change to be made.
I just my only fear is we might be too late, because I think Tottenham would be stupid to not go after him right away. Now, whether he wants to go to Tottenham is a completely different story, but everyone's going to be looking at him as, the belle of the ball. He's going to be top on a lot of people's list of, who can you bring in? So if we wait 3 months, we might be too late, Collins. I think he's going to get a job pretty quick, and by May, June, he's going to be locked up for the next year.
Yeah, the Spurs don't necessarily worry me, because they've already said that, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. Whoever the assistant coach is, who's now the interim, is going to be there till the end of the year, and they'll evaluate over the summer. So I think they're shooting themselves in the foot. I've seen U.S. soccer linked to Nagelsmann. I don't think that happens. I hate to say this as a Patriot, but that's a downgrade for him.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think they should sign Jesse Marsh anyway. So
yes. But I don't know. You get to the end of April, and what do we got? 9 fixtures in April. You drop points in 8 fixtures in April. You drop points in 4 or 5 of those. I just don't see a position opening up in that time where Nagelsmann's like, yeah, absolutely. Unless PSG fires Campos in that time.
Which could happen.
Or Carlo Ancelotti announces that he's retiring at the end of the year, and then Madrid needs a coach. But we'll see. There's going to be a lot of hats in that ring.
Yeah, I think this is the kickoff of the shuffle, and I think this is going to start kind of like a wave because believe it or not, I think Potter will be on a lot of people's top list of managers after he gets sacked. Chelsea, if that whole kind of thing gets put in motion, so he's going to then move, and I think a lot of like ping pong dominoes are going to sort of happen.
Yeah, you want to know what? I just thought of it. You know what's going to happen? Potter's going to go to Crystal Palace. That's what it'll be. He'll fill in for Patrick Vieira. We'll get Nagelsmann. And Thomas Tuchel will last 18 months at Bayern.
Potter to Palace would be not bad at all for him.
It's a good fit. But speaking on Tuchel here, because there was a lot of debate on whether or not he's disrespecting Chelsea, which is very much open to interpretation. In his opening presser at Bayern, Tuchel mentioned that he would love to work with and wants to bring Anthony Barry, his former assistant, who is still under contract at Chelsea, along with him to Germany. Yeah, a lot of people very angry that Tuchel mentioned a coach who is under contract with another club without making contact with them or anything like that. That's a big no-no, just like with player transfers. You don't talk about a player that's not yours. Bayern then call up Chelsea today, inquire about Barry, and when asked about compensation, say no, like we're not planning on compensating you for him. Like if that happens, that is the biggest Bayern move I think I've ever seen. Like that's some Bundesliga shit right there, and get that out of here.
Yeah, I would be intrigued to see what like Barry's thoughts are on the matter, because if he wants to go, like he might be able to force a move out or something. But I get what they're doing. Obviously, if you can get someone without paying for him, it's brilliant, right? Like, but that's not how business gets done these days. So I think a good faith offer would have been much more appreciated, and obviously the not bringing up in public before it becomes before any negotiations have taken place or anything like that was poor form. And I haven't said that a lot about Thomas Tuchel. I think that's relative poor form.
So the one thing that excites me about this is I think there's a lot of people, not people in the club, fans of the club, who are almost in a Thomas Tuchel cult, the Tuchelistas. But not just your normal everyday, like, oh man, Thomas Tuchel was a great manager for us. He did a great job in a rough time at the club. People who would like live, breathe, and die for Thomas Tuchel. I think you're going to see a migration of some of these plastics, and that makes me happy, because these people have been nonstop since Tuchel was fired, and it's exhausting. So go watch Bayern. Get out of here. I'm good.
Yeah, I don't understand the allegiance to coaches over clubs like that. If you want to go be a Bayern fan, go be a Bayern fan. Then like people who are Pulisic fans, who are Dortmund fans and now Chelsea fans, like don't have much time for you either. I cheer for Chelsea. I cheer for the club. I want to see the club win regardless of who's in charge or what our 11 looks like. I cheer for the club, and that's where I stake my flag.
I like it. All right. Well, some other news coming up over the break here. Chelsea moving closer to redeveloping Stamford Bridge. Actually, not redeveloping, tearing down and building a new one. So word is it's going to take 4 years to do. And so Chelsea are compiling a short list of stadiums to play in that time. I know this is going to piss off a lot of match going fans. I've already seen a lot of anger around some of these choices, but some of them aren't so bad, I would say. If you're looking at maximizing match day revenue and great atmospheres and all that. So you've got Wembley Stadium, home of the English national team. You've got Twickenham, home of English rugby and cricket. You've got the London Stadium, which of course hosted the Olympics and now hosts West Ham United. Craven Cottage right next door, host of Fulham. And then Select Car Leasing Stadium, home of Reading FC, which is a weird one because that is not, in the grand scheme of things, very close to to Stamford Bridge and Chelsea.
I think the trickiest part, man, is that this is a 4-year program. Because like if this was a 1-year deal, and I know Fulham's doing decently well, but if you could just go to your little brother's stadium next door, I think that would make a lot of sense. Fulham is literally 2 subway stops away from Chelsea on the tube, like literally 2 stops away. It's about as close as you can get. So I think that would make a ton of like logistical sense. Obviously, less stands, less people can fit into a match, so you lose a little bit on revenue. I think financially, Wembley or Twickenham would make the most sense because they're bigger stadiums and places that people can get to. But then the other side of that coin is it's not super close to where Chelsea is. So I would feel really bad for the fans who are close by that would walk to matches. And I know London's very connected with the tube, and you can get to a lot of places in pretty quick fashion. And the transportation isn't as big of an issue, but I still think it would be more of a disruption than you and I would normally realize, being over here in the States. The example I gave to you pre-pod was like if the Packers had to play in Milwaukee, it's not the end of the world, but it's just not ideal by anyone's standards. It's an hour and a half away, and you've got a lot of close by fans that go to every game that they would be definitely impacted. And for a 4-year stretch, those people are impacted. Those are the fans that have been there, not 4 years, not 10 years, but like their whole lives and generations of fans. Their father's father was a fan. So those are the people I try to cater to, because that's sort of the lifeblood. So I think if it can work out with Craven Cottage, that would be my first pick. But the most likely pick, I think, is Wembley.
Yeah, and looking at it, Wembley is about a 30-minute train ride from Stamford Bridge. Again, Reading is a weird one. I just looked that one up because I knew Reading was somewhat close to London, but not like terribly close. Taking the train, it's 2.5 hours. That one has to be crossed off the list immediately. I like the idea of Craven Cottage. I've always loved that stadium. I think it's nice, close knit. Like, I don't know. I've just always enjoyed watching matches there. But at the same time, man, you're going from champions of the world to a championship stadium. So I think that one benefits the match goers. I don't know if it benefits the club as much. London Stadium I have hated since West Ham have moved in. It was great for the Olympics, the track around it and all that, but the fans sit too far away from the pitch. There's no real atmosphere in that stadium. West Ham fans, if I remember right, were protesting that move for a long time, moving from the Boylan ground. Twickenham, I don't know a lot about. Wembley would have to be my number one. I know that the NFL is playing a couple games at Twickenham starting next year. So I don't know. I guess I'll have to wait and see what that stadium looks like. But I think out of that short list, yeah, Wembley's got to be it. It's the national stadium. It's beautiful. I take that. I hate the shadows there. I'll say that. And Chelsea historically have a great record in that stadium. So bring it on. Bring on Wembley for 4 years.
They do. And just from a scheduling conflict, ease of like, how do we think about the next 4 years? Working with Craven Cottage and Fulham and figuring out home and away each week is going to be a nightmare for everybody. And going to a stadium like Wembley or Twickenham, where you don't have to compete every single week with another team, it just makes life a whole lot easier for everybody. It's your new home for 4 years, and you just kind of rock with it. But definitely not ideal. I part of me really hates the idea that we're not going to be at Stamford Bridge for 4 years. I really dislike it, even though I know the end result's going to be great. It's just, I don't know, man. I like the stadium.
Yeah, and it makes me sad because it has been my goal for 20 years, just about now, to see a match there. I want to stay in the hotel. You and I were talking about the hotel pre-pod. Stay in the hotel, go to the match, take the tours, like do all of that. And I know Chelsea's still going to have a home after this, but it's It's the tearing down of the old, building the new. Just like new Yankee Stadium is not the same as old Yankee Stadium. Miller Park is not the same as Milwaukee County Stadium. It's just not, and it's sad. And man, I think the rush is now going to be on as soon as they announce when they're going to start construction or demolition. The race is going to be on. Tickets are going to be impossible to get. So we may have to plan a boys trip coming up pretty soon.
I'm gonna speak this into existence, Collins. We're gonna get you to a game. One way or the other, we're gonna find a way to get you to a game before it goes.
I like it. All right. So last bit here, we will touch on busy April fixtures. Parker, I haven't actually looked at our fixture list. I know you had mentioned that we have 8 earlier.
Yeah, we do.
How's it looking?
So it starts April 1st, which is this Saturday, against Villa. We have just 3 days later, April 4th, home against Liverpool, which was a rescheduled game from, I think it says match week 8. So from a while ago.
Oh yeah, when the Queen died.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. I forgot about that. Yeah. So we've got the Wolves on April 8th. So now we're 3 matches in 8 days there. 4 days later, we play Madrid in the first leg in Spain. And then we play Brighton on the 15th. So 3 days later, we play Brighton. 3 days later from that, we play Madrid again. So it's the Wednesday and then Tuesday back. It's just a lot there. We have Brentford on the 26th. So the first bit of breathing room where we've got 8 days off. We play Brentford. And then we end it 3 days later on against Arsenal. So no breathing room. I mean, squad rotation is going to be at an all-time high just with every 3 days. I mean, there's literally one break in that whole span. Otherwise, you're every 3 days. And it's gonna come down to a lot of like, who do we have ready? Who do we have healthy? And I think it's going to be a chance to see some of these other guys that we've talked about, the Chukwuemeka's, the Harvey Vales, the Conor Gallagher's, the Madueke's play a lot more than they have been.
Is that almost a blessing in disguise though? Because I'm thinking back when we have a week off compared to 3 days off. And when Potter has time to plan, seems to be when we struggle. And now, granted, it's a short sample size because I'm thinking of Dortmund, Leicester, Dortmund, or whatever that was. And it was just bang, bang, bang. It was whoever was available. Like that's who we're running with. So I wonder,
Leeds, Dortmund,
yes,
and someone else. Yeah.
Yes,
Leicester.
Leeds, Dortmund, Leicester.
Dortmund,
yes.
Leicester.
So obviously we're going to play first team all out, balls to the wall against Madrid. But those rest of those matches, Villa, I think, is a toss-up. Liverpool, I would take as a toss-up right now. You should beat Wolves. Oh God, if we don't beat Brighton, I'm gonna cry all weekend there. Brentford, you should beat. And then, oh God, the poeticness of ruining Arsenal's title hopes would be sweet. But that's one that maybe I think you drop 3 points at. So yeah, I think just kind of the bang bang nature of it might be good, and the fact that we can get guys rotated in and people aren't so grumpy all the time. Then I don't know if you follow Mikhailo Mudryk on Instagram, but he posted a pouty face picture after the last match. So it'll be nice to get him some minutes. I think it might be good, and it's gonna be fun to watch. But it might be good for the club.
I agree from a squad rotation perspective. I think it's great because I think you've got a lot of mouths to feed. We don't even talk about Pulisic or who's our Moroccan friend. I'm blanking on his name. Thank you. We don't talk about them as much anymore, but like guys like that might get a shout, right, for a game or a cameo for 30 minutes and matches like that. I would love to see younger, but I'm realistic as well. But the problem is the stretch you just commented on. The thing we talked a lot about was squad stability was one of the main factors that we talked about for those wins and the consistency in the squad that we had to finally kind of figure some stuff out. Like, hey, we're not making this many changes. No way. We know where people are going to be. And so that's the thing that scares me about squad rotation is now you're throwing RLCs into the mix and Conor Gallagher's into the mix and people that just aren't as good and B as up to speed on where people are going to be. So it adds more variability into it. And so I think it's a time where you're going to see dicier results. We've gone through spells of this the last couple of years where we have very, very, very congested schedules and results can be fine to decent to bad. Like I don't think we ever like come out of those stretches and it's 12 wins, 1 draw, no losses. Like it just doesn't happen that way. It's congested and we struggle. We draw more matches in those stretches. We lose more matches in those stretches than I think we would if we were just playing week in, week out. That's what scares me.
All right. So looking at the month, 5, you got 6 league matches, total of 18 points up for grabs. And then obviously the quarterfinal home and away. First of all, Champions League, advance or no?
Just because it's written in the stars, if we win and Bayern wins, it's the return of Thomas Tuchel. That's the way the bracket is lined up. And
oh my God,
for this, I'm going to say this, and I hope you understand the reasoning. It's bigger than if it was the final because it's home and away, and it's Thomas Tuchel's return to Stamford Bridge, and that's different than playing him in a final. And so I think it's the semis is the pinnacle of when you can play him in this contest for that reason. It is going to be his return back to Stamford Bridge. It is written in the stars, so I say yes.
Okay. I'm gonna take the other side there. I think it's a no. Real Madrid struggling in the league. This is their chance at glory, and Carlo Ancelotti is a very tough manager to outmanage, and I don't think Graham can do it. So I think it'll be tight as it was last year. Oh man, last year. I just remember looking at my Fitbit in that match and my heart rate was like 130. I think it's gonna be something along similar lines, where it comes down to a goal or something like that. But I think it'll be Madrid going through. So how about from those 18 league points available? How many points are we coming away with?
Well, like you, I think Arsenal won. That's the only kind of like they're firing on all cylinders, and we're definitely not. And I also do chalk up to we were playing a lot of matches in that month, so fatigue is going to kind of get to us by that point too. That we play them on the 29th, but I'm sort of pessimistic. I think if we come away from this with 11 points, that's about as expected.
That's the exact number. I was just going through the schedule, adding them up. That's the exact number I had. Win at Villa, draw with Liverpool, win against Wolves, draw against Brighton, win against Brentford, lost Arsenal. That's at least that's what I'm. The order might be screwed up, but that's what I'm thinking here.
Yeah, and I just think that you have a smattering of draws in there that drops the points. I don't think we lose too many of those, but I also think we have the shot of losing to Brighton. I think we have a shot at losing to Villa. I think we have a shot at losing to Liverpool. So one of those, I think we lose. Like, so that's where I kind of calculate my points too, is like we're dropping then 6. So we're at 12. And then from there, it's kind of a toss up.
All right. So to wrap that up, where do you think we finish the month of April? Where on the table?
Are we in 10th still?
Yep. Currently 10th on 38 points. Just for reference, Spurs are in 4th on 49.
I mean, we might move up to like 7th. I think that feels fair. We're taking more than we're dropping, and I think where everything kind of shakes out, I feel like we'll move up a bit, but not a lot.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I got us in that 7-8 kind of range, right around where Brighton or Brentford currently is. I think one of those teams is going to start falling off. There's no way And it's probably Brentford. I don't think Brentford is as good as they have been. But I think you're going to see Fulham continue to drop off. Interested to see if Newcastle starts to drop off here. I don't think that they have the right size squad for what they're trying to contend with here. So I think there's possibilities to move up. It's just a matter of taking advantage of those possibilities. So if we can finish the months, 7th, 8th, something like that, and then 4 matches left in May to move into a top 6. I think that's the ideal.
That's something to play for, man. And a couple of months ago, it didn't look like we were even close to that. So, but to be only 5 points back from Liverpool, who's in 6th, I think that's the bigger marker, right? We're to make up 5 points in there, and we play Liverpool, who's in 6th. We play Brighton, who's in 7th, and Brentford, who's in 8th, and Villa, who's in 11th. So all kind of right there in the middle of the table. And so I think we control our own destiny a lot on that, because if we beat those teams, we will move up.
And one win pretty much secures us from relegation. So that's the more important thing right there.
Hey,
there was talk of that earlier in the year.
I know.
All right. Well, Parks, that pushes us a little past the hour here. So any closing thoughts?
Yeah, it's something we didn't talk about, but I'll close with this just because it's kind of funny. I've been following Minnesota United a little bit more this year than I have, and I want to. I really want to kind of invest into it. My close buddy's got season tickets, so I went to the home opener with him, and he's going to try to go to most of the matches this year, and I'm going to try to follow with him and talk back and forth with him. Anywho, Minnesota United played Vancouver yesterday, and I was texting him throughout the game or whatever, and they second half, kind of goes, it was pretty standard second half. He's like 2, maybe 3 minutes of stoppage time is what they would have expected, right? It wasn't a ton of stoppage. It wasn't a lot of injuries, anything major, and MLS really doesn't go much above 4 kind of ever, unless something major happens. +6, Collins, +6 on the clock.
Okay.
The clock reads 96, I think it was 55. We have a goal kick. Takes the goal kick. Play continues. Yep. And you know what's going to happen. Minnesota's got a 1-0 lead here. Know exactly what's going to happen. Vancouver takes it down, crosses the ball in. Minnesota guy gets ahead to it, but it ends up being a flick on at the back post, and Vancouver draws it up at the last kick in the 98th minute of the match, in a game that shouldn't have gone past 3.
Was there anything in the stoppage time that stopped the game?
It just normal out of bounds, but the ref was commented after, or it was either MLS or the ref was commented after, and he said that it was a minimum to him of 6.5, even though 6 was shown. He said in his mind it was 6.5, and then normal stoppages took him past that. But 6.5 means that at the goal kick, the time of goal kick, that's dead, right? But he said he was kind of accumulating past that. And so the eye roll, the what the fuck, I haven't seen anything like that. I've seen games that have 4 minutes of stoppage time, have subs, have goals, and end at 4, on the dot 4. I've seen games like that. And so to uphold the letter of the law that ridiculously made me just cringe, man. And Minnesota doesn't get a ton of wins. They've had a decent start to the year. They've got 2 wins and now 2 draws. So they're undefeated. They're on 8 points. It would have been a huge start to the year, though, to get a 3rd win in 4 games for a club that has a ton of rotation, guys in and out, and they're kind of mid to upper level in their league. It would have been a huge start for them. And so I'm pulling for them a lot this year, and also get to rep to some of the best jerseys in MLS this year with their Northern Lights kit, which is awesome. But that's my closing thought. Referees still have a stranglehold a little bit on the game, and we see it in the Premier League level all the way down to the MLS level and everything in between. So that's my closing thought to share that story with you.
CONCACAF reffing at its finest. My closing thought, I actually branching off that. I saw a little bit of that today in the Ford Madison match. Very Andre Mariner-esque refereeing of let him play. And lo and behold, he lost control of the match and had a couple fights break out late in the match. So, man, CONCACAF do better as a whole.
Seriously.
All right,
And cheers to bad reffing, man.
Yes. So let me pay some bills here. If you've enjoyed what you watched today, we were back on Twitch. Ooh, it's been a while. We're back on Twitch. Please give us a follow there at FlagDownPod. Feel free to jump in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking. If you like the podcast version better, you can catch that on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Again, just search for us at FlagDownPod. We ask that you subscribe, rate, and review. You can follow us on social. The podcast, boy, I'm a broken record here. It's at FlagDownPod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can follow me, Andy. I'm at Comiskey North on Twitter. Parker's at DJ Parkour. Matt, who is MIA for a couple weeks here, don't bother with him. He's off. So, Parks, that's all I got. We already cheers to some shitty reffing. So, cheers to you being back.
Cheers to being back, buddy. It's always good. I'm all potted out.